Pizza Kings, 1046 Morel Avenue in Connellsville. Call 724-626-8343 or visit pizzakingswithaz.com.
This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Well, I guess everybody needs to know I'm not Jason White today, filling in for Jason. I'm Matt Leeper. I've been on a couple of the previous episodes where we discussed the Chapter 105 permitting process. Jason's going to be out this week and next week, so I'll be filling in for him next week as well. As always, today's broadcast is brought to you by Wild Acres Farm, the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association, and visit WashingtonCounty.com. So today we're going to break into a couple different topics, but the main one that we're going to talk about is permit reform. I know this is kind of a buzzword topic. A lot of people hear the term permit reform and they think about a lot of different things. The permitting reform that Jason and I generally talk about are the Chapter 105s. So I want to kind of do a little bit of a deeper explanation of what those are and why they're so important. Whenever we hear permit reform, we kind of hear it as a buzzword. A lot of people are throwing that term around. It could be anything from a permit that you need to get your electrical approved whenever you're building a new house. Permits happen, you need a permit to open a business. You need a permit for all kind of different things. What we're talking about are the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Chapter 105 permits. Those permits generally and always fall to waterway activities inside the Commonwealth. So the different permits that fall under this are everything that deal with anything from agriculture to conservation to construction to utility lines. This permitting process affects a lot of different things that you guys deal with in day-to-day life. So just some of the different things that the Chapter 105 permits are a prerequisite for are everything from highway occupancy permits, the National Pollution and Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permits for short, for construction activities. So that's any kind of land disturbance that's greater than 1 acre near water that may need both the NPDES and a Chapter 105 permit with coordination between the two. The Chapter 105s are the base block for the Chapter 102 erosion and sediment control permits. So to get onto the Chapter 102s or a joint permit, and a joint permit application is something that's a little bit more advanced than just the basic permit. But the joint permit relies on the Chapter 105 permit as the base of it, because if you don't qualify for it, a joint permit then becomes that much more difficult. On top of that, anything that's dealing with subdivisions and land development, so any kind of SALDO approval. The FEMA floodplain development permits also need the 105 permits. The water quality certification, that would be Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. The DEP dam safety permit, anything that has anything to do with extraction, oil, gas, well site development, falls under these as well. Anything that's dealing with utility lines that cross any kind of waterways, electric, gas, water, sewage, fiber optic cable, etc. Then we get into the conservation piece of this. Anytime you're trying to do any kind of fish habitat restoration or any kind of stream bank stabilization projects, that could, that would affect areas that we would. I mean, Department of Transportation deal with these things all the time because usually we have roads that either cross or run alongside streams. Any kind of bridge or culvert replacement project. So any kind of municipal or private project must secure that permit, the 105 permit, before proceeding. Then you have mining and quarry permits, marina and dock construction. So as you can see, these things kind of spiderweb out across a various number of applications. Coming from my background, I worked in the oil and gas sector. I did a lot of midstream work for natural gas. Every one of the projects that we had, anytime that we were crossing, whether that be with the pipeline, whether it would be with an access road, the portion of the project that we always had to wait for generally was these permits, so that we were capable to go into those areas. Obviously, that we wanted to make sure that we knew what we were doing. We wanted to make sure that we had everything protected. But the 105 permits, the GP5s, the GP7s, we needed to wait on those so that therefore we could build out and get the 102 permits, so that we knew what kind of environmental protections that we were going to need to put in place with our E&S plan. We live in a very unique area of the country as well. With us having the three major rivers, with us having steep terrain, there's literally waterways everywhere, and any kind of project that we're going to be dealing with, for the most part, you're going to come in contact with a waterway of some sort. So with the different things that we're looking at, the agricultural benefits from these, with the speeding up of this process that Jason and I have talked about on a couple different episodes, what we're looking to do is we're trying to mitigate the length of how long it's taken to get a permit. These permits for the general portion of what we're doing should be fairly easy, because there are only so many ways you can do most of these. As far as agricultural goes, the benefits for these, farmers, they need to build access roads across like low-lying pieces of their land, install tile drains, repair drainage ditches, replace culverts, stabilize stream banks to reduce erosion if they would have any kind of incursions by animals, or if you're farming too close. These different things, the farmers need to be able to stabilize and do those things. And what it helps is the online permitting process that we've pushed and that we're trying to push would help speed these things up. There would be less waiting time and more time for the farmer to do the activities that they need on their property. We would advocate for the standard drawings that we've been, we have very basic standard drawings for a lot of these general permits, and that's another piece of what we're trying to get pushed out there. Excuse me. So as we look at the permitting process currently, whenever it goes in, there's a lot of background work that needs to happen. We've been talking about the GP1 permit that we've been trying to get finalized for 10 Mile Creek. We've done it twice already. We have trying to build fish cover structure, which is placing rocks and boulders and different things in different sections of the creek that gives the fish a place to hide behind. It gives them a place to bed down. With that process, we've done it a couple other times, but with the general permit process that we have going on now, there's been a revision in the drawing, and we're trying to accommodate what that drawing is. But the issue that we're having is we've done it the other way 2 other times. It's been approved, and now we're kind of running up against a roadblock that the one change in the drawing is halting everything else that we're doing. So with that, that's why we need to, as we're looking at these, get a clearer understanding of what each one of those things is. The 105 protections, as we've been talking about these, they have different ramifications. They can trigger different legal and regulatory triggers. So with these, many municipalities rely on the Chapter 105 decisions to satisfy the Chapter 106 floodplain development requirements. Consent orders or corrective action plans also rely on the Chapter 105 permits. Court orders and environmental settlements. So legal settlements involving stream restoration or infrastructure fixes often stipulate the Chapter 105 permits must be obtained first. So one of the main things that we're looking to accomplish is equality, for lack of a better term. The different parts of the state are going to require different things because of terrain, because of the amount of of streams, the different things that we're looking to cross. Western Pennsylvania, I believe, is kind of a unique situation in that we're inundated with stream crossings. As we get closer out into central Pennsylvania, the terrain changes, as everyone knows, and as we get further east in the state, we have a different set of terrain as well. With excuse me, with everything that we're doing here, the 105 permits. I apologize, folks. I kind of lost my train of thought there. The 105 permits that we're looking to get could be done in a quick manner. The majority of them are the same. Whenever you're looking at agriculture, whenever you're looking at utility crossings, those things, there are only so many different ways that you can get across. That you can do those. The permits that are required we need for road access, for culvert crossings, for stream impacts, or for pad development near the waterways. Engineering and utility, industrial permitting dependencies. The PA Public Utility Commission approves utility infrastructure crossings. Water may require PUC sitting approvals that are contingent upon the Chapter 105 permits. This is something that gets into everything that we're doing. And as we continue to look at the process, each one of these industries has a different setup. It has a different way of going about doing these kind of things. So I apologize. The NPDES permits that we're looking at in any land disturbance. I'm joking. I apologize, folks. Sorry. So let's talk about the difference in terrain. So terrain and the abundant waterways in Western Pennsylvania are one of the reasons why we have some of the different issues that we have in other places. So we have the Allegheny, the Monongahela, and the Ohio rivers, along with hundreds of streams and creek crossings crisscrossing the region. We have hilly terrain, steep slopes that require careful planning for the stormwater management, for roads and utility construction, and the landslide mitigation. The Pittsburgh region presents a unique challenge and the heightened importance for the Chapter 105 permits due to its geography, our aging infrastructure, and the scale of upcoming development. The geography and the aging infrastructure go into a lot of things. Pennsylvania, as a whole, has a roughly 100-degree freeze-thaw cycle throughout the course of the year. Our infrastructure takes a beating as far as roads, bridges, and those kind of things go because of this. Not only that, we utilize salt, which is another corrosive that will end up doing a lot of damage to this. So these 105 permits, they're going to be needed in all these situations whenever we're dealing with any kind of road construction, we're dealing with any kind of bridge replacement. Now, as we saw whenever we had the issue out on 95 with the bridge that collapsed in the Philadelphia region, it was considered an emergency, something that would have taken in this region, if it was just a natural bridge replacement, would have taken months. They got done in under a month because all these things were expedited. I guess my point with that is if it can be expedited in those cases, why can we not expedite it in others? So the impacts of that, then we have the massive infrastructure overhaul that we need. We have some of the oldest roads. We have some of the oldest bridges, old sewer systems inside the city, and I know that a lot of the outlying areas are building new sewer systems to take on and to account for a lot of the new infrastructure and the housing that is being built and developed around the area. Every year we get billions in federal and state funding through IIJA, PennDOT allocations that are now flowing in for upgrades to the roads and bridges, to stormwater and sewer separation, utility modernization, transit expansion and redevelopment. All these things are happening, and all these things are based on those permits. One of the other things that is happening around Pittsburgh is revitalizing former steel mill sites, riverfront and industrial zones into housing, into parks, into tech campuses. These areas are often outdated and have unpermitted drainage systems and sit on unregulated floodplains or riparian buffers. These areas are also going to be something that are going to need to be updated, and and developers need quick, clear Chapter 105 guidance and permitting pathways to keep the redevelopment moving forward without delays. Energy and utility corridor hub. Pittsburgh is a regional hub for natural gas, power transmission, and water infrastructure. Expansion of these systems, particularly in western Pennsylvania for the shale gas, requires crossing water bodies repeatedly. Another one of the big things that we're looking at is expanding that infrastructure into, now that we have a glut of gas in this region, and we've got to figure out ways to utilize it. In this region now, we're starting to see smaller natural gas developed power stations that are being utilized to replace some of the older coal burning stations, like Homer City that was just decommissioned last year. Down off of 21 in Carmichael's, myself personally, the company that I work for, we built the pipeline that now feeds the small natural gas power plant that sits down on the river in behind Carmichael's. A lot more of that infrastructure is going to be something that we're going to see pop up, because we don't need less power now, we need more. We have that abundant resource. The Chapter 105s will also help, because another one of the big points of interest that we're talking about now is data centers. 3 Mile Island, the former nuclear plant, was purchased by a company that's looking to use it to simply fuel their data centers. One of the things that I know a lot of the different people in the region are trying to get, they're trying to acquire those data centers to bring jobs, to bring industry back to the region, with the ability to fuel those with the natural gas that we have so abundantly in the region. That's one of the places that they're looking. Fayette County, Greene County, it appears parts of Washington County, even into Westmoreland County. The region is abundant with the fuel that they need, and it would allow them to keep the data centers, which are going to be very, very power hungry, off of the actual grid, and keep our power costs lower. But one of the biggest things that we're looking at now, and that everybody has seen over the course of the last little bit, has been the flash flooding that we have. Pittsburgh, being as mountainous as it is and set up the way it is prone to sudden flooding due to the slopes, the urban runoff, and some of the outdated infrastructure that's there. We haven't upgraded the infrastructure, but we continue to build and we continue to add to the infrastructure in certain regions. As you can see through, anybody that's watched the news over the course of the last few days has seen what kind of a devastating effect that can have, because water is not a preferrer of persons. It just goes where it's going to go. It could be potentially one of the most destructive forces that we see. By allowing the Chapter 105 permits to be done quicker, it gives us the opportunity to replace some of that infrastructure, and not only replace, but expand upon that infrastructure. The 105s display a critical role in the stormwater upgrades, and resilient investments will allow those other areas to be developed. Everywhere I go, I live up towards in Washington County, every time I go down the road, I'm seeing a new development starting up. So every one of those developments has had to go through the permitting process. Every time that you drive by one of those, think of the 105 permits that they had to get just to be able to get in and start building those houses. There's a lot of industrial development in these areas as well. You've got a lot of people that are building new houses. We got to have a place for them to work. We have to have a place for them to shop, and all these things kind of tie in one on top of the other. The bottom line is, in a region like Pittsburgh, we're dense with the waterways. We're dense with old infrastructure, and major redevelopment is needed. Just for lack of a better term, just for the modernization aspect of it. We need to upgrade because of every time you grade for a new site, that readjusts the way the water is going to flow. It's going to adjust where it ends up. So our area also is trying to stay competitive with the rest of the area. What makes us different? What makes a business want to come and work in Western Pennsylvania? You look at the steel mill with U.S. Steel. They built it in another state because the permitting time actually allowed them to get it open before they would have been able to get all the permitting done in the state of Pennsylvania. I think that says a lot more about what we're doing than what the other states are doing. There's not an opportunity for us, if we're going to continue to go down the same slow and methodical permitting process, just for the sake of going through it. That staying competitive is a very, very big thing, because as we open up, as things become more global, you have to have a reason to set yourself aside. You have to have a reason that people want to go there. Ours is our abundance of natural energy that sits under the ground that we've spent billions of dollars to extract and to be able to utilize. We have a distinct advantage over most places, other places in the country. But these also help mitigate any of the climate risks or the environmental risks that we would, because these allow us to put in the proper environmental controls. They allow us to do things the right way so that we actually take care of the resource of water in the Commonwealth, instead of just haphazardly throwing things in and then fixing it after the fact. And then with it being quicker, it'll also help us support regional jobs. So the quicker that we can get these things in, the faster that we can keep people here or bring people back to the area. I know that a lot of people have moved out and have moved back into the area, but with a lot of the different companies slowing down, we need to have a second resurgence. We need to have another reason why people need to come to this area, and utilizing the energy that we have will bring other companies back here.
How long would it take to do the kind of upgrade you're talking about? Obviously a while, because you said we have so much infrastructure. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of time.
Well, with what you're talking about, it depends on what industry we're talking about. In the construction industry, those things are going to be a constant. We're going to continue to move, but those companies would be able to do a lot more. We would be able to replace a lot more things and to modernize the infrastructure at a lot quicker pace than we have been. I mean, the roadblocks that we come into with these are, you have a certain window to do construction in the state of Pennsylvania, especially when you're dealing with heavy highway, whenever you're dealing with any of those kind of things. Every one of us has gone through and seen a bridge project take 2 years, because we only have 8 to 10 months, depending on weather, that those people are going to be actually able to be out there and active. If we can be permitting more of these projects, we can be doing them simultaneously. We can upgrade 4 bridges in the time that it would take us to do one, because we have 4 different contractors that now have the approvals to go out and do those. We have over the course of the last 5 to 7 years, we've had a very robust program in the state of Pennsylvania called P3, that they've gone in and they've identified bridges that have needed replaced because the infrastructure was going bad. Even with that, it took a long time to get some of those bridges permitted, because of the permitting process as it goes in Pennsylvania. With the 105, most bridges obviously are going to be in a situation where they're either over water, with a few of them being over other roadways. So that the construction side in and of itself, it would be for expediting projects. As far as it goes with natural gas, as far as it goes with power lines, with us needing to create new power sources, new different, differing ways of getting, because we have started closing down the legacy power plants, Homer City, for instance, which was just shut down. You're going to need to create these new ways to get the power from the new places to the masses. So that's another one of the ways that that this would benefit. It helps us modernize the infrastructure that we already have in place, as well as the new infrastructure that we are putting in place.
Yeah, you hear so much about all the structurally deficient bridges we have. There's a lot in Pennsylvania. And as you mentioned with the power stuff, we're always hearing about, are they going to build new power plants or nuclear or, solar, all these different types of energy sources that we have. A lot of options for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and each one of those is going to require as well. Usually with wind farms, you see them; they're going to be higher up in the elevation because they need, but the access roads to them, all the access to them is going to need that. And then how are you going to get the power out? You need utility lines, you need battery banks, all those things that you're going to need to have the infrastructure for. If you're looking at solar, you've got, anytime you're building solar is going to be on a larger scale, and you're going to be dealing with either floodplains, you're going to be dealing with streams. And then again, anytime you're dealing with any kind of energy, you're going to need a way to get it out from where it's at. As far as bridges, like we were talking earlier, the freeze-thaw cycle is definitely a bad thing for a bridge, and then on top of that, you're building it with steel and concrete. So anytime you're adding salt, you're literally bathing it in a corrosive. There are different ways to mitigate some of that, but those kind of infrastructure projects are going to need to happen, depending on what you're using, every 20 to 30 years just to maintain them in this region. So the permitting process is going to take place every time you do that, or any time that you have an upgrade piece to one of those. And then, as we're talking, like even outside of that, with agriculture, with culvert installation, for field access, for erosion control. If I'm a farmer and I want to go into a field and I've got a creek running along the side of it, but I need to get over that because it's my only access point. Now I've got that. If I've got cattle and I've got a field that has a stream running through it, and now I need to build cattle crossings. All these things are going to work in the same way. So I need to be able to get that permit, because that permit falls under a general permit. We've talked about the energy construction, but stormwater, for the different plans. You go to a Walmart Supercenter, that they're building, or any of the other major retailers that they're built. Whenever they build those, all the entire process is built around a Chapter 105 because of retention, detention ponds. Any of your stormwater plans, the base for those is the 105s. So we really want to focus on those because they're literally the foundation to the pyramid. As you continue up the pyramid, now it starts getting more and more restrictive with what you're doing, as it should, based on the functionality that you're trying to accomplish. The reason why we're pushing so hard to get these ones streamlined is because the 105s are the baseline for everything else. You can't get a 102 without a 105. You can't get a 401 without a 105. You can't get an occupancy permit for construction without a 105. So if we can get these figured out and we can use these as a working model for the rest of things, nobody's saying that it's going to be perfect right off the bat, but we can work to a situation where now we've eliminated a lot of the waste, we've eliminated a lot of the inefficiencies, so that we can get projects moving the way that they need to be.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. Do you think you'll be able to get these permits streamlined quicker? In time, maybe?
Well, what we're looking at, what Jason and I have talked about on this radio show in the past, is that, we already have a lot of the infrastructure in place where we can start utilizing, like an online application portal. The way it goes right now, it's a paper process. It's a paper intensive process. But with the ability to build apps, the ability to use metadata, the ability to use, you know, the cell phone that I've got in my hand or a tablet or any of those things, we now have the ability to go out and we can do a lot of this, that it can autofill utilizing the metadata. We can get it from place to place a lot quicker. Usually whenever you get an approval, then it gets sent back to you via a letter or a fax or an email. And then it's my responsibility to send it out to the people, get it to the people in the area that I'm working. Whereas as soon as it's approved, we can have it emailed to those people, so that now we literally go from a week and a half, because we got to get it back. We got to get it out to the other people. We got to get notification that they've received it. That email goes out and we get it to them, and it becomes a letter of intent or a notice of intent, instead of that process that it is currently.
And I was going to say, you think with all the technology we have, that, like you said, this could be done like instantly. So why do they still go through all these other, I guess, outdated, I don't know if that's what it is, outdated, with all this paper trail and paperwork?
Well, as we know, the government is a Goliath.
Yes.
The government is absolutely a Goliath in the grand scheme of things. Whereas we're trying to make it more of a David. We need to have the money that it would take to do this is available. The money that it would take to do this would be a one-time investment and then some upkeep. But it allows them to then utilize their resources better, their people, to allow them to do the inspections, that allows them to do the other things. Different organizations inside the government. So myself personally, I had to get some certification clearances to do some coaching, and that process was all automated. I would go on to the website, I would type in the information that it requested, and of the 10 things that I had to do, 7 of them I had a response within an hour. And that's something that's dealing with background checks and everything else. So if they have the ability to do it at that level, I don't understand why we don't at this. I know the system that the DEP had built is a little bit antiquated, and you just can't go. I understand that there's not the funding for it to do it every year, but this is something that we're going on. I don't know the exact age of their system currently, but I know that that's something that they're looking to switch up here in the next year or so. So why don't we do it with the focus on streamlining these permits is kind of what Jason and I have been advocating for.
Yeah, because this is all important stuff. Like you said, it's all about infrastructure and things like that. And obviously, as you just mentioned, they're using the technology for other things. So why can't they do it with these permits?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've probably done a not as great job as Jason at explaining is that people don't realize how much of this actually touches and affects their everyday life. A lot of people will give you the old "who cares" because they don't realize that just simply getting in their car and driving down the road, they're affected by this. By them going to the store, they're affected by this. By them going to get gas, the electricity that comes into their house. All these things are determined by this process. So, through my clumsy way of trying to give you guys a lot of information, I'm trying to explain and trying to show you guys the amount of touch points that you guys have with this every day. We're sitting in this studio, and as I look around me, there are a bunch of outlets, there are a bunch of lights, there are computers. In your house, anybody that's listening to me still, you've got power that's powering whatever device you're listening to me on, the lights, your refrigerator, your heater. All these things all play a part, and all these 105 permits getting done could benefit you in the long run or make things cheaper for you in your day-to-day life.
We all just take it for granted pretty much. And we don't think about, all the stuff we have. And, it's like, well, we go in, turn the lights on, they come on, we get in the car, it just go, all that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a valid point. And and I'm guilty of it in other areas. The problem is that we don't know. You don't know what you don't know. My grandfather always told me pigs don't know, pigs stink, and I thought that was pretty interesting, because you really don't. You know this very small sphere, the 6 inches in front of your face, and you just assume that all the other stuff is going to take care of itself.
Yeah. So it's really a lot of stuff to think about. I mean, how much more work is ahead for you guys in trying to get this, these permits and everything? I mean, you and Jason do a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are involved as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are a lot of people that are working behind the scenes. There are a lot of people that we've talked to. We've had initial meetings with, even on the Department of Environmental Protection side, we feel that these guys are starting to come to the table a little bit more than maybe that they have in the past, and we appreciate that, because we can't do this by ourselves. We need buy-in from all the different stakeholders. Ultimately, it takes a lot to get bureaucracy kind of under control. I don't know if that's the terminology I really want to use, but for lack of a better, we all need to be on the same page. It can't be one side trying to force the other one's hand. These are, I hate when people say that it's just common sense. Well, common sense isn't so common. And a lot of people don't know the intricacies of what we're talking about. I can talk about this for hours, but I'm going to lose a lot of people, because you can get into the minutia really, really quick. So, long story short is, I believe that we could do this in a very short period of time if we had the buy-in from the people that are going to make the decisions.
Why do you think that it's taking people so long to buy in and get on board with it?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think that there are people that would like to see change. That even work inside the departments. But I think that people have just done things a certain way for a long time. And it's not just this industry. It's not just this issue. That's just the way we've always done it, so that's the way we're going to continue to do it, is a mantra that just doesn't happen in this industry. It's a mantra that happens across industries. But I think that there's some of that. And, I know that there's an influx of youth. I know that there's an influx of new people that are coming into the departments, that are coming into this, that may give us an opportunity to do some things that maybe we haven't been able to do in past years. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to get this done. I feel I'm a person that I feel like I need to understand what's going on. So that's why I kind of come at it a little bit different than maybe, somebody else would. I know I've given a lot of information this morning about just trying to get people to understand the touch points that you have with this on a day-to-day basis that you may not realize that you do. But, the questions that you're asking me are pertinent now. I've given a vast swath, but someone like yourself, you may have some questions. I mean, like, what other things are you curious about?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot just from what I've heard from you. And I mean, like I said, I don't really know anything about this. Probably guilty, like a lot of people.
Well, I know we discussed it. I know we discussed this a little bit beforehand, and that's the beauty of having people that have an understanding of the finer points of certain things. Like, I could sit in here and I could watch you all day run the board, try to learn how to do this. I did this in college, and it's awesome. The organization that you guys have here, and appreciate you guys letting us on. But like, it's something that I could really do a deep dive on. Whereas something like this, a lot of people, they're here 30 seconds. All right, I'm bored. I'm bored. I don't understand it. I don't really care.
And that's probably a lot of the issue. Like, people just don't understand, or they don't want to understand, or
they don't think it affects their day.
Yeah.
Like, whenever we start talking about this kind of stuff, you can see eyes glaze. And the reason that is because most people don't understand the number of touch points they have with it, because they think this stuff just takes care of itself. The Walmart that was built over here, first it was nothing, then stuff got cleared, then you started to see the outline of the building, then the building was there. It seems like it was was 3 weeks to them. It was probably an 8 to 10 month process.
Yeah.
And now they just shop there, and then you ask them how long it's been there. I don't know. It's been there for a while. The touch point is there, but you don't realize it because it just
You're right.
assimilates into the rest of your day-to-day life. But it's not just that. Like, how many the traffic cone is the state flower of Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Every spring we see them bloom. We have people coming out, and that's where I think a lot of these things go, is because people don't realize that there was a 6 to 8 month process minimum
to even get that project started,
to get everything cleared, to get it bid, to get all those things worked out, and then to go back in, and from like the contractor side, if there's anything that doesn't resonate or wasn't set up properly with permitting, now we've got to go back and double check on that, because we don't want to do something that's going to be detrimental to the environment, the waterways, or any of those things. So,
a lot goes into it before the finished product.
Yes,
and what the people see, and then people just don't, like you said, they don't care, or they don't think it affects them.
Yeah, I don't know if they don't care is the proper terminology. I just think that it's one of those things that it runs parallel to their lives. They know that it benefits it, but they really don't care how the sausage is made.
Yes,
for lack of a better term. And as we continue to move forward, there's the potential to have a lot of capital investment, a lot of capital projects in this region that are going to benefit the people of the region, not only, with their day-to-day life, but also the opportunity for better jobs, for, better pay, and those kind of things moving forward. But they all revolve around this little thing that we've been talking about, and people don't even realize that it's happening. So, projects can get shut down based off of that. But I see as we're coming up on the top of the hour. So I appreciate everybody for hanging in there with me. I as you can tell, this is one of my first times doing this solo. So, but I just want to give another shout out to our sponsors. Thanks to Wild Acres Farms. Thanks to the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. And don't forget to visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. So thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again next week.
And you're listening to WNBS Uniontown at 11 o'clock.
Is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Steve Kathan. The U.S.